Welcome to Scary Campfire Stories. My name is Kyle Hester, and I will be your host. The purpose of this channel is for the continuation of independent film. Please pitch into the Patreon on the link below to be a part of our films going forward, and be sure to subscribe to the channel. Let's begin, shall we? The top 10 scariest places in Louisiana. Number 10. Gothic de Ritter Jail. J.J. Brevell was a taxi driver who was murdered by his fares while taking them to a rural destination. Brevell is buried in Woodlawn Cemetery. The two men who were found guilty of his murder were hanged in the Old Parish Jail on March 19, 1928. Deputy Sheriff Gill was the hangman. Joe Genna, age 25, was pronounced dead at 1:06 p.m. and Moulton Brasseau at 1:29 p.m. Neither man was buried in the parish. It was after this incident the Beauregard Parish Jail, sometimes referred to as the Gothic Jail, also became known as the Hanging Jail, and is haunted to this day. Number 9. The Lalaurie House in New Orleans, Louisiana. Marie Delphine McCarty, or McCarthy, born March 19, 1787, more commonly known as Madame Blanc, or after her third marriage as Madame Lalaurie, was a New Orleans Creole socialite and serial killer who tortured and murdered slaves in her household. Born during the Spanish colonial period, Lalaurie married 3 times in Louisiana and was twice widowed. She maintained her position in New Orleans society until April 10, 1834, when rescuers responded to a fire at her Royal Street mansion. They discovered bound slaves in her attic, who showed evidence of cruel, violent abuse over a long period. Lalaurie's house was subsequently sacked by an outraged mob of New Orleans citizens. She escaped to France with her family. The mansion traditionally held to be Lalaurie's is a landmark in the French Quarter, in part because of its history, for its architectural significance. However, her house was burned by a mob, and the Lalaurie mansion at 1140 Royal Street was in fact rebuilt after her departure from New Orleans. Some say you can still hear the screams of her victims to this day. Number 8. The Bentley Hotel in Alexandria, Louisiana. The Bentley Hotel opened in 1908 and served as elegant lodging for several distinguished individuals, including Henry Kissinger, Dwight Eisenhower, John Wayne, and Roy Rogers, among others. In 2012, the Bentley Hotel was purchased and plans were made to reopen the once grand hotel to the public. The Mirror Room Lounge reopened on May 1, 2015, and is reportedly still visited by the ghost of the man who built the hotel, Joseph Bentley. Several other mischievous ghosts are said to haunt the place. One is the ghost of a young girl who fell to her death down the elevator shaft. Another is a man who died from a fall off the grand staircase in 1985. Figures have also been seen peeking over the railing above the staircase. I guess it's time to book a room, don't you think? Number 7. The Calcasieu Courthouse in Lake Charles, Louisiana. The original Calcasieu Courthouse was destroyed by a fire in 1910 and rebuilt in 1911. That structure still stands today and was listed in the National Register of Historic Places in 1989. It was here that the troubled Louisiana woman, Toni Jo, was tried, convicted of murder, and sentenced to death in 1942. She was treated very well while in prison and maintained a cool and collected attitude even on the morning of her execution, but she ultimately became the only woman in Louisiana to die in the electric chair. Some courthouse employees say they have heard the whispering of a woman's voice, footsteps roaming the hallways, and even some terrifying high-pitched screams. Number 6. Pleasant Hall at Louisiana State University in Baton Rouge. If you've been to Louisiana, then you know the story of this haunting tale of the girl who shot her boyfriend and then turned the gun on herself. Of course, there are other versions that say she jumped from the 3rd floor window of the building, which was then called Smith Hall. And although there haven't been any police records found to back up the story, some people are convinced it's still affected. Room 312, that is. It's believed to have been the room where the girl killed herself, and back when the building served as a hotel, guests report feelings of a presence in that room. Not to mention the door would open and close on its own. Sounds like a good place to study, doesn't it? Number 5. Jean Lafitte's Blacksmith Shop in New Orleans. Lafitte's Blacksmith Shop, which is now a bar, claims to be the oldest bar in the United States. May have been built as early as 1722. The building was believed to have been used first by the Lafitte brothers for their smuggling operation, but today it's frequented by visitors and residents looking to have a good time. I've been there myself, and I can tell you, you can almost feel the pirates walking around you. One of the oldest buildings in the French Quarter. Of course it has to be haunted, and Jean Lafitte has been spotted on more than one occasion, quietly lurking in the corner near the fireplace on the bottom floor. The second floor of the bar is said to be haunted by another ghost, a woman who likes to whisper in the ears of unsuspecting victims. Nonetheless, the ghost can keep you company when you have a drink there. It's time to go have a drink. Number 4. USS Kidd in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. The USS Kidd is a Fletcher-class destroyer named after Rear Admiral Isaac Campbell Kidd, Sr., who was killed during the attack at Pearl Harbor. This ship identified as DD-661, as it was the Navy's 661st destroyer built. On April 11, 1945, the Kidd was assisting fellow ships, the USS Black Chauncey and Bullard, in what was actually a regular raid on Okinawa. In the distance, the Kidd noticed several dogfights taking place between Japanese pilots and members of the combat patrol. As many of us know, this new era of warfare had brought about the kamikaze pilots, which were the hardest type of attack to defend. It's literally impossible to fight off a pilot with a death wish, as even if you shoot him down, he is skilled enough and he will glide into you. Such was the case as the Kidd noticed a Japanese pilot attempting to dive down into the USS Black. As the plane leveled out to make its attack, it suddenly pulled up, missing the Black, and set its sights on the Kidd. Heavy machine gun fire and a last-minute swing of the rudder proved to be futile, as the suicide pilot crashed into the front boiler room of the ship. The kinetic force of the crash sent the plane's bombs straight through the other side of the ship, detonating shortly thereafter. The crash claimed the lives of 38 soldiers, while also injuring 55. The ship's commander and doctor were amongst the injured, putting the Kidd in an even worse predicament. The ship is now repaired. It has been told that you can still hear soldiers walking around, conversations, apparitions, the whole nine. Number 3. Manchac Swamp, north of La Place. The Manchac Swamp is not only super creepy, but it's also supposed to hold ghostly encounters too. Legend says a voodoo priestess, Julie White, lived in the swamp and predicted that her death would take the lives of many others too. Eerily enough, in 1915, on the day of her funeral, a hurricane hit and killed many of the people in the area. Some people have reported hearing a woman scream or a voice singing the song White was heard singing the day of her death. One day I'm gonna die, and I'm gonna take all of you with me. Why, I tell you what, that gives me the chills just thinking about it. Yeah, you can go to the swamp. You can even take tours. I think I'll pass. Number 2. Oak Alley Plantation in Vacherie, Louisiana. With the striking pathway shaded by century-old oak trees greeting you at the plantation gate, Oak Alley Plantation is simply a fascinating place to visit. There have also been many supernatural experiences reported by both staff members and visitors, and it's not uncommon for visitors to catch glimpses of figures, feel cold spots, or hear strange voices. One staff member felt someone touch the arm while working alone at the mansion. Another tour guide actually saw two different figures appear, one in the kitchen and one in the lavender room. The Oak Alley plantation grounds are enchanting, beautiful, and full of rich history, but they are mysterious. You can go there and be touched by ghosts, spoken to by people who aren't there. That sounds like a vacation, doesn't it? Number 1 on our list of Louisiana's scariest places. St. Louis Cemetery Number 1 in New Orleans. In New Orleans, cemeteries full of above-ground tombs are called cities of the dead, and the rows of ornate graves invoke quite the eerie feeling, especially in St. Louis Cemetery Number 1. This cemetery is home to many old graves, some of which are even from the 1700s. The notorious voodoo queen, Marie Laveau, is buried in this cemetery, and voodoo societies still visit it daily to leave offerings in return for the voodoo queen's blessings. Restless spirits are said to roam the cemetery, and visitors have claimed to see manifestations of ghosts walking through the rows of tombs. EVPs have been recorded there, and photos display eerie orbs throughout the cemetery. Although it is highly visited by tourists and locals alike, visitors should not visit alone. If you enjoyed this story, please be sure to subscribe to the channel and continue supporting independent film by watching the films in the links below, Zombie with a Shotgun and The Chair. And you can support the Patreon as well to keep independent film continuing into the future. Thank you. We'll see you in the next one.